All right, so the numbers out of Canada, Alberta are pretty much the same thing. Canada, 101,682 confirmed cases, 8436 dead. Alberta, 45 new cases yesterday, which is pretty much average, maybe slightly higher. Um, we're actually down in the active cases department, which is good news. Hospitalization numbers have been in the 30s for like a week now, which is good news. The amount of people dying has definitely gone down. Um, Total tests, again, we're over 400,000, which is good news. Like I mentioned, we've tested almost 10% of our population. That's incredibly high. Now, again, I don't know if there's people that have been tested multiple times, probably, but still, I mean, the majority, the vast majority of the people that have been tested probably have only been tested once. I mean, especially if you test positive, because there's really no point in getting tested again because you have antibodies. At least as far as I'm aware, that's how it works. It's very good news in pretty much every way, shape, or form. Would it be nice to have less new cases and less active cases? Yeah, but there's no trend that we need to be worried about, especially given the fact that we've been in stage two for what, a month now, roughly. I mean, a lot more businesses are open. A lot still aren't open. A lot of industries are taking a big hit. But I mean, you look at Saskatchewan, Manitoba, both already completely reopened, if not very close. I don't know exactly how they're doing it, but I know they've moved on past stage three already. I think they have a five-stage process. So that's something to keep an eye out. But given the fact that they've had little to no hiccups along the way, I think it's safe to say that, I mean, it's beyond safe to say that reopening is the only course of action that makes any sense. You look at Ontario, Quebec, both their numbers are down. You look at the states is a hard one because their numbers are going up, but the death rate, the amount of daily new deaths is still down. It was up a little bit yesterday, but it is still down. I mean, you look at Alberta too. Like we're having like one person a week, maybe two, die of this, and before that we were having one or two, three people a day dying. So the death rate is continuing to go down. Again, it's something that I've mentioned before this. I mean, we already have studies that show that the death rate for people under 50 is comparable or even lower than the flu. But by the time this is all said and done, my guess is that the death rate for the entire death rate for everyone will be comparable to the flu, if not lower. The numbers continue to trek down. And the only way we'll know, I mean, there's no way of knowing 100% for sure. The only way you can know 99% for sure is if there's a antibody tests done that are very reliable, done on a large scale. Now that may not come out of Canada, may come out of the states, or it may come out of specific provinces. We don't know. But the one thing we do know is that the death rate continues to go down, and it's not something we need to be worried about. Again, I constantly see these people that are still on social media, and it is most definitely a minority because I mean, I've been because things are reopening more. You've been around talking to people more, and of all the people, I've probably interacted with 50 people that I've heard their maybe not their full opinion on it, but have at least made remarks upon it. Of those 50, maybe one or two of them are full on paranoid, drinking the Kool-Aid that this is still the doomsday virus. Like seriously, that's the only amount of people. Like of those, I know more people who, as crazy as it sounds, literally think that the entire thing's a hoax. And not that I think that they're crazy. The reality is that the government is lied to, or one of two things: either the government is more incompetent than someone like me, who literally has no expertise in any of, I mean, maybe a small amount, but not no expertise compared to these literal doctors. The government is supposed to have literal experts giving them suggestions. So I think it's pretty insane to suggest that they would have handled things worse than a random guy on the internet that does pay attention to the news very very well, does read a lot of stuff, but compared to these people, not an expert by any shape or the means. So the only logical explanation is that they've been flat out lying to us, or at the very least deliberately misleading us, because the government loves this kind of stuff. The government wants to pass legislation that they normally wouldn't otherwise be able to pass. I mean, not only that, too, like the government, I mean, Parliament isn't going to be sitting till what, October? you got these people who are getting what, 4 months paid vacation. You're making These people are making north of $10,000 a month plus benefits plus their fat pension down the road, and they don't even have to work. Like, of course these people want to pretend like this is worse than it is. Like, it's blatantly obvious. They're literally being paid to do it. Not only that, too, they're on TV every day. They're at center stage. Like, of course they want to pretend like it's worse than it is. And not only that, too, there's a lot of money involved too. Like, um, a vaccine for this would literally be worth hundreds of billions of, maybe even trillions of dollars. And people think that that's crazy, but no. But Bill Gates literally has said on camera he thinks he's going to make over $100 billion in sheer profit off a vaccine from this. So the idea that there's no money involved here, like, of course there's money involved. And this is just another reason why anytime I hear the left complain about the right, and or you're just giving money to your corporate buddies and all that garbage that they always complain about, which they're right about to an extent, but they're flat out wrong in that they only think that it happens one way. Like, the left, it's largely with the unions and with the Bill Gates kind of and the Soroses of the world. The right, it's with the oil companies and stuff too. The difference is that everybody knows the right does that. Like, even people on the right admit that. But people on the left still pretend that there's nothing going on the other side too. The other thing too is public school teachers and all these kind of people. You're getting paid $100,000 a year with one of the best pensions that literally exist to do a job that requires an average amount of intelligence. Like, come on. You're making double the median salary with an insanely good pension. Like, of course that there's money involved when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, anybody pretending that that's not the case is a complete and utter idiot. But again, that's a bit of a diatribe, but again, I wanted to bring it up nonetheless. So, checking in on the state's numbers, their daily new cases has been over 30,000 for a few days now, but the daily new deaths are not something we need to worry about. I mean, they haven't had a day over a thousand die, in since the start of June, and not only that too, in May and even in April, they had, looks like, about 10 days of over 2,000 people die, and in May they had probably 5 to 10 days with over 1,000, and in June they only had one day with over 1,000 people die so far. So the daily new cases has gone up, but the daily new deaths has gone down. My hypothesis this whole time has been the increase in cases is almost exclusively due to the fact that they're discovering a lot of asymptomatic people. Some of it is due to the protests. The protests, I mean, a lot of it was rioting, but I don't think that that's the majority of it. I think that that's a clear minority of it. I think they're just discovering more people, and not. I mean, some of it, yeah, people that went to the rioting and the protesting that have been discovered, but most of it is just flat out discovering more, and they're just flat out testing more people too. Like, when you test more people, you're going to discover more. But the take home message is that it's not something we need to be worried about. If anything, it's a good thing. If anything, it's a good thing because we're finding out that the virus isn't nearly as deadly as we even thought it was a couple weeks ago. And back then, we knew it was comparable to the flu for most people. Now we know it's less than the flu for most people. So, if anything, it's good news. So, the big news out of yesterday was Project Veritas releasing video of Facebook employees basically admitting to their bias. I mean, you can go check out the videos if you want. I mean, this video itself has 1.7 million views on Twitter. I mean, just go check them out on Twitter. Go check them out on YouTube. You can find all the videos. But the big news is, yeah, like I've been talking about ad nauseum, but yeah, I still seen a post yesterday on, I don't know if it was r/Canada or one of the big Reddit forums out of Canada, and there's literally people talking about how it's the social media, are they actually biased against conservatives? And most of the people in the comments, well, I mean, the Reddit's largely a left-wing echo chamber, so I expected that. But people talking about, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, and but like, how insane can you people possibly be? And by that, I'm not talking to most of the people watching this, it's the people that actually believe that garbage. Like, Project Veritas literally has people on video admitting to being biased, and their argument for it will always be, oh, Project Veritas selectively edits or is biased. But the easiest, I mean, that's such an easy argument to debunk, it's not even funny, and that Project Veritas has won every lawsuit that they've been involved with. So if they were biased and selectively editing things, then they would be losing all their lawsuits. So that's such a terrible argument. It's not even funny. So yeah, take home message. Social media is incredibly biased against people who aren't on the left, and they're literally admitting it too. Like, again, this is just how crazy the left is that you literally have people admitting on camera to doing something, and yet the left still denies it. Like, the left still denies it, and yet they have the gall to turn around and accuse people on the right of being conspiracy theorists. Like, how insane can you possibly be? um, so during these times, there's a lot of talk of racism, and yet I pointed out quite a few times, and I'll keep pointing out in that. I mean, this is from Donald Trump Jr., but Oregon County imposes face mask requirement targeting only white people, minorities exempt over racism fears, which would seem to anyone with a brain the definition of racism. Yeah, and this is the problem, too, that I pointed out ad nauseum that the only laws that exist nowadays that are by definition racist um, are against black, or they negatively affect whites, and they benefit blacks. Like, it's so insane, it's not even funny. And this is the problem that I pointed out, is that the Black Lives Matter people and all these radical leftists, their solution to the problem that they perceive, whether or not whether it's real or not, to whatever extent, will only make the problem worse. It will only make the problem worse. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is that I'm, number one, frankly, tired of being called racist when I'm not actually racist, and tired of seeing people who aren't actually racist be called racist. And I'm tired of seeing people suffer who shouldn't be suffering. Now, again, when people point out the better solutions to their problems and they're trying to propose, I don't feel sorry for anyone. Like, I flat out don't feel sorry for anyone. Like, it's, if someone chooses to smoke and drink and eat terribly, I don't feel sorry for them if they die in their 50s or their 40s. Like, I really don't. Especially if you warn them like, if they were, for whatever reason, completely ignorant and brainwashed into thinking that what they were doing wasn't bad for them, then yeah, you would feel sorry for them. But if you warn them, if you did whatever you could to warn them, then you don't feel sorry for them. That's the same thing with these people too, is that I don't have any sympathy for you. Like, you're pretending that the 9 unarmed black men killed by cops last year are this massive issue in society, when blacks kill, what, 6, 7,000 other blacks every year. You're more worried about the 9 people killed by cops every year than the 6,000 people, other blacks killed by blacks. Again, blacks are about 50 times as likely to kill another black as a white person is, but yet they're more worried about the whites killing the blacks. Like, it's insane. Like, it's insane. That's why I refuse to have sympathy for any of these people, is that they refuse to acknowledge the real problems that face them. And this is the same stuff too, is that we have literal racist laws on the books that are targeting whites. And this is the problem too, is that it won't end here too. People are laughing, oh, it's only a face mask, who cares? But it won't end there. It never will. Look at history. Look at history. That's never how it ends. They'll get away with this, and then it'll be, they'll take it a step further, then they'll take it a step further, and then before it's all said and done, we'll have segregation again, and then before that's all said and done, because that won't fix their problems, it'll get even worse. And that's exactly what we're seeing in most of the, when you look at history, that's exactly what you see. So if we actually want to fix the problem, we treat everybody equally. If you want to make the problem worse, you do what the left is doing. So anyway, um, and again, I'm kind of jumping topic to topic here, but there's a lot of different stuff I want to cover here. Um, this is from Cambry on Twitter, and she says, never forget Democratic mayors sent SWAT teams to shut down churches and barbershops, but let looters and Antifa burn down cities. Now, again, I pointed this out so many times, but again, a lot of people, this is an afterthought now with all the other stuff that's coming out, is that um, and this is the other thing too when it comes to the whole virus situation too, is that, like I say, nobody actually cares about it anymore, because if you actually cared about it, you wouldn't support the rioting and the protesters. Maybe if you want to say, yeah, you can protest, but only 100 people or whatever number you want to set it at. But these thousands and thousands of people gathering, no social distancing, nothing whatsoever, even though social distancing is pseudoscience. But I mean, according to the left, it isn't. None of that stuff. So again, if anyone's to blame for the increase in cases, even though it's largely a non-issue, it's the left. It's the left. because they're the ones that supported the massive amounts of people gathering in small spots too. And this is why it bothers me so much too, is that people can't open their small businesses. I can't go to the gym. But people say, oh, you can't go to the gym. There's like 50 people in there. You're all going to get sick, even though there's like hardly any evidence of that happening in any of the places that have reopened. The increase in cases has came very recently, all that kind of stuff. And again, thousands and thousands of people can gather, but again, you can't go to your business that has 50 people or even less at it. Like it's insane. And it's the Democratic mayor. They and the leftist people too. They've been to blame this entire time. This entire time, we literally went within a week to you. If you want to go to the park, if you want to go to the gym, if you want to open your small business, to being you're the worst person in the world, you want to kill grandma, to if you don't want to let thousands, not if you don't want to let 50 people or 10 people gather in a building, then you're the worst person ever. But if you want to let if you don't want to let thousands, a lot of places, tens of thousands of people gather in small areas, then you're the worst person ever. Like that's literally where we went. That's where we went from, and it's absolutely beyond insane. So a little bit about the whole conservative leader debate. I mean, the big take-home message is anybody but Peter MacKay. I mean, he wants to give Quebec a veto on pipelines. Not only is that no province should have a veto. Even if Alberta was, let's say, I mean, it would be it would never happen. But if the Trudeau government proposed giving Alberta a veto on pipeline deals or the ability to force it through, I wouldn't even support it. I wouldn't even support it because no province should have that. No province should have that right. It should, if the pipeline makes sense, we put it through. If you can make it, not make it, terrible, this massive concern of environmental damage, then yeah, it should go through. And pipelines are, I believe, are less likely to have issues than trains. And the problem right now is that they're just massively increasing the load on trains rather than having a pipeline. So that's kind of the problem with that. And like I say, Mackay is everything that's terrible in the Conservative Party. O'Toole isn't the greatest either to an extent. But I think of all the people, Mackay is still the worst. I think Lewis or Sloan is probably the best, at least from what I can tell. I haven't been paying very close attention to it. I'm not even saying I would vote for them for sure. I would have to wait and see till the general election. I would have to wait and see what the Wexit Party, the People's Party, all that kind of stuff. But if the Conservatives can get an actual good leader, someone who wants to, I mean, the gun control is a must have. The scrapping the carbon tax, or at the very least pulling it back, though, I mean, those are must haves. And if I could get those two things, I would probably support a conservative government. Not that I agree with them, but just the fact that under Trudeau, Canada's headed down such a dark path, it's not even funny. And it's not even funny. And I would suggest people do the same too, is that um, the problem with like Wexit and stuff is that I don't see it becoming relevant for the simple reason, not that it isn't popular enough in Alberta and Saskatchewan, just the simple fact that the East and I mean the crazies in Vancouver and whatnot would do everything in their power to sabotage it to the nth degree. Like that's the big problem, is that they'll do the same to the Conservatives, but at least the Conservatives have a lot more power and money and whatnot behind them. The problem is that all of what I'm saying would depend upon the Conservatives getting a good leader. If the leader that they propose is actually proposing to fix some of these major issues, I would support them. If not, no. Like, I mean, Scheer's a good example. He didn't want, I mean, he wanted to scrap the carbon tax, but he wanted to replace it with something that's pretty much the same. He didn't want to cut immigration. He didn't really want to propose any major tax cuts or deregulation, any of that kind of stuff. But now, like I said, and I think most people that are watching this probably would agree, is that for the only things that would convince you to vote for the Conservatives is, I mean, number one, a repeal of all this gun ban garbage, and most likely even repealing some of the stuff that existed even before that, is a must-have to vote for a conservative or the Conservatives. And not only that, I think that you need at least one of cutting immigration, getting rid of the carbon tax, cutting regulation. I think that you need at least one of those three or four major issues that aren't the gun ban. Um, Yeah, so that's basically the point being too is that, and this is the other thing too is that a lot of people watching this probably know people who are conservative supporters. So make sure you're telling them that to not vote for Mackay, basically. But anyway, the last thing I wanted to talk about is this is from Maxime Bernier, and he says the Marxist morons at the UN deleted their tweet endorsing peaceful Antifa thugs after it provoked a backlash. Hashtag defund the UN. Now again, the UN put out a tweet kind of supporting the supporting Antifa, but it was terrible that the government of the states declared them a terrorist organization. When they clearly are a terrorist organization. I mean, it's beyond the shadow of a doubt. They're a terrorist organization. They're not anti-fascist. They're pro-communist. If they were anti-fascist, they wouldn't use violence. Like it makes no sense. Like, and just because they call themselves anti-fascist doesn't mean anything. Like I say, if Trump went and created a new party and declared it the anti-racist party, would that mean that he's magically anti-racist? I mean, even though he isn't a racist, but at least from the leftist perspective, would that make him an anti-racist? Well, no, it wouldn't. They still think that he would be a racist. So again, it's the same thing with Antifa. Just because you call yourself anti-fascist doesn't mean anything. And this is the other thing too about the UN too. Anybody who's still supporting the UN, like I don't have words for you. The only people that are big on the UN are the socialists, basically because the UN is the goal is global government. So if you're a socialist, yeah, you really want that. But again, anybody who still thinks supports them is absolutely beyond insane. So I'll leave it there. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got links in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, as always, check me out on Twitter and check me out on BitChute. It's very important that you follow and support people that are speaking the truth. So make sure you check out all the links in the description.